Welcome everyone to a video walkthrough of Reallusion Importer 1.2, a Houdini digital asset that enables one-click importing of characters from Character Creator 5 and iClone into Houdini. Alright, so you've downloaded the HDA and put it in your Houdini OTL folder. You can now load it as a SOP in your scene. When you load the HDA in the scene, the first thing you will have to do is load in the character that you have exported from either Character Creator or iClone. In this menu, you choose whether you're loading in the USD, which is the default, or FBX, which is the alternative. You can press this button that will take you to the documentation page that explains the possibilities with each choice. But it generally boils down to USD is much faster, but it is lacking some features that come with making a character in Reallusion products, namely the expression wrinkles. Whereas the FBX is much heavier, both in load time and the RAM consumption, but it is a little bit more full-featured. You can read all about it here, and in general, the documents are very extensive and helpful. In general, the best workflow for importing in the current version 1.21 is to import static FBX meshes that are to be animated with USD animations, so you get the best of both worlds. Anyway, for this video, we'll be using a USD character exported from Character Creator 5. If you need a reminder on the settings you need to keep in mind while exporting a character, you can find them here. For USD, the load should be very fast, and once the character is loaded, you can see it in the viewport. You have a couple of options here to do some small local fixes on the skin and cloth meshes if needed. Skin Fix is there for situations where there are body parts peeking through the clothes of the character. Namely, the Reallusion's default Camilla character has a small issue with some body parts poking through that are not good to show in polite company. But basically what this option does is it creates an additional parallel network next to the main HDA in which you can do small local adjustments. For example, in Camilla's case, a little bit of peak SOP on the shirt mesh does the trick. The next option is the Fix Broken Blend Shapes option, which is used for very rare cases when there is a bug with some of the elements of the characters exported from Character Creator, whereupon their blend shapes are tripled or quadrupled, so when they are animated, the points of the elements do not know which facial blend shape to follow, so they break apart when animated. Reallusion's default Kevin character has this issue on his soul patch, and usually this kind of issue will show up for facial hair that wasn't properly bound the right way to the face. What this will do, this will completely bypass the blend shape control of the facial hair and have the facial hair follow the nearest skin on the face with a simple point deform. Next, we have the animation tab, which is pretty self-explanatory and rudimentary. In general, I recommend authoring all the animations in iClone with the character that is supposed to be doing them, and then exporting into Houdini. But this section exists if for some reason you are not able to do that, so you want to mix and match various animations that were created differently. Rule of thumb is, this feature will only work with Reallusion authored animations. And also, if you're, for example, adding an animation to a character that was created with a character who had different proportions, then you need to enable retarget animation, which will try to retarget the bones so that the animation can fit on the new character. In general, as I said, when in doubt, try to author all the animations in iClone or Character Creator and then bring them in. In the Utilities tab, you have the Clear Scene Cache, which is here in situations when you're using FBX files, which are very heavy and need to do some loading or reloading of characters into the scene. Houdini is known to be very aggressive with scene caching, so if you see that your RAM is exploding to like 30, 40, 50, 60 gigabytes when working with FBX, then just press this and it will clear the scene of the old characters in cache. This is not important if you're using USD exports. Here is the reminder for the export settings, and here are any relevant links related to this product. Now, when you have exported your character and think it's ready, you can just press the Build Character button, which will do all of the LOPs setup for you. This goes pretty fast for both FBX and USD, maybe between 5 and 20 seconds. After it's done, you have a helpful Go to LOPs button that will take you to the stage context. In here, you have the pre-made LOP network. You have the SOP import, this is where all your materials are, and if you want to go deep and start customizing the materials, you can dive in and do any changes manually in here. This one is the LookDev controller. This is the master controller for all the customization that are exposed, and you can modify pretty much anything here. Before we get into this, I just need to mention that you will not get a one-to-one appearance of materials in Karma immediately after you export a character from Reallusion programs. Basically, you will most often need to do a little bit of work to bring the characters closer to what you've seen in Character Creator. This is mostly down to how the renderers in both programs work, how the lighting and rays propagate through the scene, but the good news is that with a little work, Karma characters can start looking much more lifelike than the Character Creator 5 ones. Mostly because of the subsurface scatter, which looks a lot better in Houdini in my opinion. So at the top we have the Go to SOPs button, which just takes you back to SOP land, and Reset to Defaults, which is hopefully self-explanatory. The quality might help when you're working in LookDev and you find that the viewport render is responding a little bit too slow, so you can optimize things here. This production versus preview menu simply controls the selection on these two toggles below it, meaning preview will remove the refraction from the eyeballs and the surface, whereas production control will just turn them back on. For the light setup, you can choose between the default, which is kind of a 3-point light setup with a bonus HDRI, whereas we can put it on a flatter neutral and turn off the HDRI for a more balanced look. Note that this menu, of course, only manipulates the lights that were created with the Build Character button on the main HDAs, and nothing that you create yourself separately. Moving on, we have the Skin folder. Skin normals, pretty self-explanatory. Skin roughness also. You can manipulate this for a glossier, wet look of the skin if it's raining or something. Diffuse contrast is something added simply because I noticed that the Character Creator main body shader has a little bit more of an aggressive representation of the blemishes and markings on skin, so you can tune this a little bit. This is a very gentle control, keep in mind, so you have to be really delicate with it, like 1.01, 1.02 and stuff like that. Respect metallic maps is like a funky debugging thing that you will almost never probably have to use. So Character Creator automatically bakes out a positive metallic map. So if it was applied the way it was authored, then sometimes you would see metallic teeth and tongue and stuff like that. So the metallic maps are off by default on the skin, teeth, tongue, and body. You should turn this off only if you're making a metallic character, something like Colossus from X-Men or Robocop or something like that. Skin tint, you can tint the skin. Teeth folder, also mostly self-explanatory. Usually you don't need to do anything here unless you have a particular effect in mind. Subsurface folder. So you can adjust all the subsurface settings here. This has the values that are authored on the shader in Character Creator, but seeing that this is a different renderer, this part is kind of eyeballing and making things look nice and lifelike. The only advice I can give is to turn off the subsurface scattering for background characters and stuff, because this is a very expensive setting. Wrinkles. As I mentioned a few times, expression wrinkles are an FBX only setting. Firstly, there is a helper button that will in theory scrub through the timeline and find a frame where there is a lot of deformation in the face, so it's easier to look at the wrinkles. The actual wrinkle sliders, everything is just as it is in Character Creator, nothing special here. Displacement. I don't think many characters that are made purely with Character Creator have displacement maps, but for some hero characters who got some extra love and got sculpting details in ZBrush, this is where you control the application of the displacement maps. You have bump mapped, true, and disabled, which is the default. So true displacement is the most expensive, bump maps are a little bit less expensive, and disabled you will most often just be on this one. The eye folder. This is where any and all eye parameters are. Most of them are pretty clear, hopefully. The only thing I have to mention is that this is the one other point where FBX versus USD is concerned. So for USD, the values that you author in CC5 are transferred more faithfully. Whereas for FBX, this will be more like educated guesses, so you'll probably have to do a little bit more work to get the eyes looking close to what you saw in Character Creator 5. That is the only difference. Glow mode for the eyes, this is just something I added as an extra feature. There's a few modes here. My favorite one is the circle, so you can get those kind of thinner vampire eyes really easily and fast if you want to, or like you can get something like Storm from X-Men. Finally, hair. You can either use the hair color that you baked in Character Creator or you can use your own. The only thing to mention here is that FBX exports a lot more in-depth hair maps, like tip root maps and streaks and anisotropy and everything like that, so if you need to manipulate those advanced hair options, use an FBX. And that's it for the Look Dev controller. You got your lights here, you got your camera that is focused on the head, and finally the Karma node, which is just for visualization purposes. For final render, you should probably make your own Karma setup the way you like it. So that was it for this walkthrough. If you bought the product, thank you very much for your patronage, and if you're still on the fence, I would like to remind you that full Discord support and all future updates to this product are included in the price whenever they are available. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more updates and improvements in the future.